Correspondence at kermode.com. What is out that we can go and see?
Medusa, which is a really interesting Brazilian film by Anita Rocha de Silveira. And this played in Cannes in 2021. It's been doing the festival circuit since then. It is kind of inspired by the giallo of Dario Argento. It also plays like a kind of weird pre-echo of Heather's Clueless Neon Demon, because it looks like it's kind of a 70s film. It opens with this video, this really strange video, this spider walking dance. You know the spider walking Exorcist? We haven't seen The Exorcist. Somebody turned.
I've seen the clip.
You've seen the clip?
Yes.
On their back, dancing and riding. And then we see that this is being watched by somebody on their phone. And then we see the person who's watching this on their phone being pursued by a series of masked assailants, women wearing these masks that are like the mask in Eyes Without a Face, who then basically beat her up and get her to promise to become a soldier of Christ. What she has to do is that she has to admit that she's been a terrible woman and then say to accept Jesus and become a virtuous woman. They film it on their phones and then they put the film on the internet. We then see them as part of a sort of Christian vanguard group. They are the Treasures. There is a male militia as well called the Watchmen. They are training for morality duties to police the morality of everyone around them. And then one of them starts telling this story of why it is that they do this thing, going out, these vigilante groups, wearing a mask. I'm going to play you a clip. Obviously, it's not an English language clip. So we'll just explain afterwards what was said during the clip.
Aí lá estava ela numa boate, em meio a todos os piores pecados que a gente pode pensar. Todo mundo fantasiado. Até que uma iluminada apareceu. Uma mulher vestida de anjo, uma máscara branca. Com uma mão ela foi trazendo um copo com querosene, com a outra um isqueiro. Aí ela foi andando bem devagarzinho até a Melissa. Fez a única coisa que podia ter sido feita. Tacou fogo na cara dela. Que horror! Não, mas não é o fogo dos infernos, é o fogo que limpa. Mas ela morreu?
So what happened in that clip is they were telling the story of Melissa, a woman from the town who had defamed the town by appearing in a nude scene in a film and by flaunting herself around town. And one day, somebody came into the club where she was wearing a mask and set her on fire. And at the end, is she dead? No, she disappeared. Where's she gone? So
but also they say it wasn't hellfire. It was a cleansing
good
fire.
Thing. It's a cleansing fire, exactly. So one of them then says, I'm going to go and find her and get a photograph of her because this will be a great warning to anybody who wants to be sinful. But of course, actually what's happening is that these people who are completely sort of, one of the things they do is they post videos online, how to take the perfect Christian selfie. You have to hold it. If you hold the camera too low, that's the view from hell. If you hold the camera too high, well, that's God's eye and that's no one else other than God. You have to do it from, from horizontal.
We need to be saved from people like this.
Precisely. So the film, as you saw from that, it's kind of pinks and, bright colours. And that's what I meant about the kind of the Clueless and the Heathers thing. It's very, very satirical. It is basically a horror fantasy satire that is inspired by the rise of right-wing populism and mad religious belief in return to old-school values. The women believe absolutely that women must be subservient to men and, we must get back to the Old Testament values. But the whole thing is being done in this really kind of wryly, satirical, off-kilter way. So as you're watching it, you understand that there are several layers of the film playing out, and one of the central characters then goes off to go undercover to find Melissa, and in fact discovers much more than she bargained for. I really like this. I loved the way it looked. I mean, it's got these bright colours that are completely kind of at odds with the darkness of the story. It's got a kind of Suspiria-like edge to it. It's also got a touch of the Eyes of Tammy Faye about it. You remember the Eyes of Tammy Faye, which you really enjoyed?
Tammy Faye Baker.
Yeah. But you remember the film, and it was like when they were portraying Tammy Faye Baker, the brightness was so bright you thought it was going to scorch your eyes.
It's worth saying just in parentheses that the Reverend Steve Peters, who is in that movie as the gay pastor.
Yes.
Died this week.
That's right. Yes, of course.
And John Ronson, in his podcast, was talking a lot about Steve Peters. But anyway, that's
yes, and John Ronson was actually on Radio 4 talking about him because it was absolutely fascinating story. So essentially what you've got is, on the one hand, you've got a nod to a lot of cult movies, like I said, Eyes Without a Face. There's a touch of Clockwork Orange in the way in which the gang dress. There is this really inventive use of pop songs, like Wishing on a Star ends up sounding very, very kind of threatening, as does Baby It's You. And the whole thing is done in this very arch, very sort of smart socio-political satire way, that if you're a fan of Lynch or Argento or any of that kind of psychodrama horror, that kind of overcranked psychodrama horror, you'll find much in this to enjoy. If you're a fan of kind of political satire, you'll find much in it to enjoy. I mean, the whole thing is really a kind of modern parable about progressive values being attacked by a kind of right-wing popularism that is driven by authoritarianism and body fascism and all those things that we're against.
Yeah. Well, look, this is Portuguese,
Brazilian
Portuguese, and in Brazil, the evangelical church is in bed with the Bolsonaro folk, and precisely. So that's precisely one of the key markets.
This is where it comes from.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.